Welcome to Retro Sports Gamer Channel. I'm Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and Mutant Football League, NFL Blitz, and a few other games. Boom shakalaka! Kaboom!
Let's go! Welcome back, everyone. It's time to go over the hardcore tier list 2.0. And then we're going to go over some playbook stuff as far as it relates to the Tecmo Super Bowl hardcore format. We got Troy in the chat. I was thinking about inviting Troy to this, but I didn't think he would be up still. So I'm glad you're able to join the chat. Troy is running his own tournament. It's hardcore format coming up October 19th. That's in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's $25 to sign up right now. It's called the Full Nelson 2, and it'll be at Bomer's Bar. But this weekend in Chicago, D-Men Tap Chicago, it says there on the right side, sign up for Tecmo September 14th, retrosportsgamer.net. We have over 20 players right now, and there's plenty of room for more. And I'm throwing the guaranteed prize money on the line, $500 for first place. Good entries for, good prizes for second, third, fourth entries into other tournaments. Of course, you see that belt on the right side over there. That will be given away to first place, as well as a championship ring. So if you haven't signed up, do so. And if you are signed up, this is a video you're definitely going to want to see, as well as if you sign up for Troy's tournament October 19th. So before I go into any playbook options for you and recommendations for the hardcore format, I want to go over the hardcore tier list. And so you might have lost my audio there, so just give me a moment. Well, with the hardcore tier list up, I'm going to fix the audio here on when that screen pops up, and then you'll hear me in just a moment. All right, so you should be able to hear me now. So this is the hardcore tier list 2.0. Code name in the chat. We don't we don't want you to die. But anyways, 2.0. The first time we did the Tecmo Super Bowl Hardcore Championship, the tier list was a little bit different. And what we found was based on what teams players were using and their success rate. It definitely needed some altering, just talking to the players and seeing some of the numbers that came up. And as we'll start with the first tier, San Francisco and Houston. So San Francisco and Houston are the two best teams in Tecmo Super Bowl. If you factor in that you could put players anywhere you want, as the game allows you to do, as you could do any in-game move, including the nose tackle dive or any dive with linemen. These are the two best teams. They have the best passing offenses. They both have stellar defenses. Houston gets a big upgrade if you play the standardized way with not putting wide receivers at running back. But Houston has a ton of good receivers, and you could put a 63 max speed guy back there, as well as the 49ers. And a lot of people do this, is they put Jerry Rice back there as the running back, because he's like basically the same speed as Barry Sanders at a 69 max speed. But that's not always the best thing to do with the 49ers, because their receiving core isn't quite as strong, even though Taylor and Brent Jones and Rathman are all good. Houston's is just maybe a little bit stronger. And then Troy in the chat saying they both have 19 maximum speed quarterbacks, which makes them mobile, and they can avoid a few more nose tackle dives because of that speed. And then San Francisco even has the option of putting in Steve Young, which is a 25 max speed. So you do have that option there, and there won't be any dives coming at him. But really, I'm going to talk about that a lot. But when you break it down, the risk reward, it's usually not worth the risk. And if you watched any of the Tecmo Super Bowl Hardcore Championship on this channel, or if you watched it on TGFN Retro back when they covered it, you will see that it wasn't much of a factor in the games, especially the bigger ones. If you catch an opponent that doesn't know what they're doing, maybe has a bad playbook, then you can really take advantage of that. But when I go over this playbook later, you'll know which plays to use to avoid just being dived in and being easy to read with your playbook. So San Francisco and Houston, they're just a cut above the rest, and that's why they're in a tier alone. Now, the tier list allows you to use any team in a lower tier. So say the opponent calls tier 1, the next player can actually choose any team at that point because everyone's below tier 1. But most of the time, they're going to probably use the 49ers or Houston. So that is the way it works. So moving down to tier 2, you now have a very attractive tier call here in tier 2. The Giants, Buffalo, Philly, and the Raiders. Now, the Giants and Buffalo are two of the best overall teams in the game. They do have... Well, Buffalo has a weakness, which is in the secondary as far as coverage and interceptions. But overall, they're both stellar teams. Buffalo has a better quarterback and a faster overall running back. So offensively, Buffalo, I would give them the nod by just a hair there. But when you look at Philly and the Raiders, Philly has QB Eagles, Randall Cunningham, and he's the fastest quarterback in the game at 56 max speed. I don't know if you'll be able to see it there, but it actually says it. QB Eagles, he's not getting dive tackled by anyone. You could pretty much use any play in the playbook with Philly and be 100% okay. And then you have the not the Oakland Raiders in this game, Los Angeles Raiders. The Los Angeles Raiders have Bo Jackson. Everyone knows he's the fastest running back in the game, and he is a huge weapon. So at the bottom, you have Philly, which has QB Eagles, which is looked at as the ultimate weapon. And then you have the Los Angeles Raiders, Bo Jackson, the best you can get at running back. So you can either go with the two of the most talented offensive players in the game or two of the best overall teams in the game with Giants or Buffalo. So it really opens the door. It's a nice tier. You can see players choose any of these teams. They're all good matchups, even in the hardcore format. I didn't talk that much about the Raiders, but the Raiders also have a ton of speed on offense. They're probably the fastest offense in the game, but they don't have good quarterbacks, and their secondary is a little bit weaker too as far as interceptions. But it's probably it's pretty close to Buffalo. So there you have it. That's tier 2. It's an excellent tier to call in this format, but if you do call it, I don't see anyone going down to other tiers to use other teams. Maybe KC, but I don't think so. Now let's look at tier 3. Tier 3 is loaded. It's got the most teams in one tier. And it's probably, if you're looking at the teams, there's a lot of variety of what you see here, but one of the common factors with a lot of these teams, especially the first 3, is their quarterbacks aren't very fast, so they will be susceptible to some diving in. Kansas City, Miami's quarterbacks, Marino and DeBerg, they only have a 6 max speed. So you're going to want to pick a good playbook that doesn't allow you to be sacked real quick by the nose tackle. So Kansas City, Miami, KC, they don't really get a bump in this format, but they're just a good team overall. They really are. They don't have much weakness. You could say secondary maybe a little bit with the interceptions, but overall KC's a great team. They have the strongest kicker in the game. Miami now gets a little bit of a boost in the running game. They have one of the best offensive lines, probably up there, top 3 in the game. What's up, Infamous Smoke? Thanks for joining the chat. Miami, they have one of the best offensive lines, so you could put a faster guy. Duper would be number 1 that you would put back there because he has a 50 max speed. And then they still have good receivers to put out there even if you do that, because they have Jensen, they have Clayton, and they have Edmonds that you could put out there. So Miami gets a boost in this format for sure. The Bears, the way the standard rules are is you could put Neil Anderson at wide receiver anyways, and that's one of my arguments for this format is like if you could just manipulate and put running backs at wide receiver whenever you need to, then why can't you put the wide receivers at running back? It doesn't really make any sense. So for the Bears, they're going to be, you have to be an advanced player to use the Bears, because a lot of guys that are average to below average, they're going to, if you try to use the Bears because you're in Chicago and you just start chucking passes with Tom Zach or Jim Harbaugh, you're just going to throw picks. You're going to lose by a lot. They do have the best secondary in the game interception-wise, but I don't recommend them if you're coming to this tournament and you're not an advanced player. You haven't played in a while. The Bengals, they are an attractive team in this format. Boomer Esiason has that 19 max speed, so he can get away from some of those nose tackle dives. They don't have a ton of speed on offense. You're really relying on James Brooks, but of course they have David Fulcher, who's one of the best defenders overall in the game. Now the Lions and the Rams, in the last tier list, they were down with some of the tier 4 teams. But these two teams were used a lot in the last tournament, and they were used successfully. And the Lions are built for this format. They have 2 quarterbacks that are scramblers. They're not going to get tackled by anything. You could open up the playbook completely with Rodney Peete and Andre Rare. Of course, you have Barry Sanders. And then you have a good nose tackle in Jerry Ball that can really get in there. Troy in the chat saying, hitting power doesn't matter player versus player, and there are no injuries in tournament play. It's not normal for Jerry Rice or any wide receiver to run the ball 20 times a game. This is why it's not permitted. Well, it's not normal for Neil Anderson to catch 3 jumping catches down the field either, but I see what you're saying. Okay, so moving on. The Rams are loaded with offensive talent, and they have a good quarterback. Jim Everett's not going to be mobile, but you have Flipper Anderson, Willie Anderson, and Henry Ellard, 2 of the best receivers in the game. They're both a 56 max speed, so you could put one of them at running back. You're gonna get some playbook action, Deontay Jenkins. So you can put one of those guys at running back, probably Willie Anderson, because Henry Ellard's receptions are tied with Jerry Rice for best in the game, and they have a good offensive line. It's the same story at the Rams. Their defense isn't the fastest, and sometimes it'll just completely let you down. But offensively, I would say they're top 5 in the game, honestly. Looking at all the teams, Rams are that talented on offense overall. Looking at Tier 4, well, let me conclude Tier 3 real quick. It's tough. This is going to be a tough tier to pick what team you really want. I liked the Lions in the last one, but now they're a tier up going against some of these good passing teams like the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Detroit doesn't have the best secondary, so I don't know. It's really just going to come down to your play style because there's a lot offered in the tier. Now, Tier 4, you got Minnesota, Washington, San Diego, Tampa Bay, and Denver. If you like scrambling quarterbacks, down at the bottom, Vinny Testaverde, tied for second fastest in the game. You got him on the Bucks, and then Elway's got that 25 max speed. So either way you call this tier, you could end up with one of those teams. But at the top, you have the Vikings and the Redskins, and these are two teams that are often matched up against each other. But they don't have the best quarterbacks, and specifically Washington with Rippon is only 6 max speed. So you got to watch out with that. Minnesota's got Whiskey Wade Wilson. He could throw the rock around, but sometimes it's not so accurate. Minnesota's got a great defense. Washington also has a strong defense with a couple stud players at the corners to man. So you will see these teams used. It comes down to preference. San Diego, you're going to have the fastest running back in the tier tied with Bobby Humphrey on the Broncos. You see those teams match up a lot, but the Chargers are a little bit better because of their defense with Gilbert at the bottom corner, Sam Seal at the top, and then you got Leslie O'Neal who could block some kicks. Denver has the rare linebacker 4 at the bottom that can dive in on up the middle plays. I would say in general, up the middle plays aren't going to be the best to use in this format. They can be attacked by the up the middle nose tackle dive, and also teams like Denver that have a faster guy at linebacker 4. Tampa Bay is a favorite of mine in this tier because they got Vinny. They have Wayne Haddix, who's arguably the best defender in the game with his 75 interception and his 75 max speed. So you can give your opponents fits with the Bucks, and then offensively you can really move the ball down the field without taking a ton of risk because Vinny Testaverde keeps your options open with his speed, and he's got a pretty accurate arm, unlike Rodney Peete on the Lions. So really, this tier, it comes down to your preference, but you got those scrambling quarterbacks, you got a couple fast running backs, and then you have the better overall teams in Vikings and Washington, but you got to put up with their deficiencies. Me personally, I don't like their quarterbacking situation for those two teams, but other guys do very well with 44 pass control quarterbacks. Tier 5. This is a tier that I milked in Troy's last tournament, the full Nelson 1. In the playoffs, played 3 straight matchups in Tier 5. I think only maybe one of the times it was called on me. And I used the Packers every single time, and I beat all 3 other teams in the tier. The Packers, they go from close to a bottom tier team to a respectable team in this game and a team to look out for a few reasons. Number one, the full Nelson tournament is named after Bob Nelson, their nose tackle, and he has a rare rushing power of 69, which makes him get going really quick. So he could get in on the snap of the ball really faster than any nose tackle. So that's something to look out for because if you have a bad playbook or you're just not thinking about it, that can mess you up pretty good. But they also have a scrambling quarterback that's a 25 max speed, so you don't have to worry about the plays you're picking as much, and just open up the offense for whatever you have to do. And then they have Sterling Sharp, who's one of the better receivers in the game, and you could just chuck up to him. We got Flo in the chat saying, gimme Houston, Philly, Miami, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, New York Jets, and Cleveland. So Flo giving you all his picks in all 7 tiers. So I think we can ask him about those. Let me just look at those. Houston, I mean, you got to choose one of them. Philly, of course, QB Eagles. I like that too. I might be doing some of that. Miami, really strong. I can't really go against that. Tampa Bay, of course. Falcons, now that's the one I would not do in Tier 5. That's just me. I wouldn't do the Falcons. I'm not that comfortable with what they have on defense besides Deion Sanders. But looking at the other Tier 5 teams, since we're in there now, the Cowboys, they're one of those teams that I think can compete with the teams in the tier above. They're just a little bit lesser in areas than those teams. They have Emmitt Smith, which is their best player. He has the 56 max speed. He's also going to be potentially the fastest running back, because you could put Andre Rison at running back in Atlanta, and that's one of the weapons you could use. And maybe, I don't know if that's something Flo would do, but he did win the Tecmo Super Bowl Hardcore Championship last year, so he knows what he's doing. But Andre Rison gives you a lot of options because he's such a stellar offensive player, and he's a 63 max speed. But Dallas, one of Dallas' strengths that gets overlooked is their running against the run in the secondary. All their guys have 50 hit power or more, and they're pretty fast overall. You got a 63. The 2 safeties are 50 max speed, and then the bottom corner's 56. So they're pretty fast in the secondary. They got usable guys at linebacker and on the line. Dallas is a good team. Troy Aikman, I like to say he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, but I know that's not true. I just like using him. So for some reason, I feel like that little bit of passing speed does better for me than like using teams like Minnesota and Washington. So Dallas, they're a team you could use if you're comfortable with them. They're probably, looking at the teams, they're probably the best overall team in Tier 5, I have to say. Atlanta's, they got one superstar on offense, one on defense. Pittsburgh is just probably the best defense in the game. And Flo's saying for Falcons, you could still have 50 MS at both receivers for the Falcons, which is a good point. You could put Sean Collins, which is a good receiver, 50 max speed, and then you could also put the running back, Rozier, 50 max speed at receiver. So, yeah, the Atlanta does have a lot of options. If you can make their defense work, then you could do something with them. But back to Pittsburgh, their defense is one of the best in the game, if not the best. I think it is the best. If you can, sometimes their defense could just win you the game with fumbles, interceptions, just make it really hard on your opponent to move the ball. Their run defense is great because everyone's fast. So Pittsburgh, like, they're the team in this tier, and even versus Tier 4 teams, if you want to muck it up, then you could call Pittsburgh and just see what happens. And then the Packers I already talked about. So Tier 6 is not a very attractive tier to me at all. But they do have teams that have strengths. The Jets are one of those average Joe teams that I feel like can compete with anyone because of the way they're built, but they don't have any true superstar players. You could argue Eric McMillan is at their top side safety. He probably is close to that. And also Bird is a linebacker. But offensively, they're pretty average all over the board. The Cardinals are a fun team to use. They have a 50 max speed running back that some would say they maybe overrate him a little bit because he's a white running back in the game, even though Johnny Johnson's actually a black guy. But the safeties are, if you want to simplify your defense, they have 2 fast safeties in Tim McDonald, Lonnie Young. Lonnie Young's got that rare running speed at 69, so he gets going real quick. If Rosenbach can hit some passes, he's got some mobility at the 19, so he's not as big of a target with the nose tackle dive depending on what team you're playing. The Cardinals, they could be hit or miss, but a good team. The Saints, they're kind of like a power running team with running backs that aren't that fast, but they have Hilliard at 50 max speed and a couple more 44s. Defensively, they don't have any star, but they have multiple guys with 50 max speed. So they are at the bottom of that tier 6, but they're another preference team. Their right tackle is the fastest in the game, tied with Pittsburgh. So you can put Hayward back there with a 94 hit power, and the Saints have the best return, the kickoff return in the game, which is nice. But they're a team you would want to use by preference. Another thing, just to go back to the Steelers really quick, what's on my mind is they also have a fast nose tackle, so you got to look out for him, and as well as the Saints. So there's a few teams that do have these good nose tackles, and in this format, you'll want to know what teams those are. Now, Tier 7, the Browns are in Tier 7 because honestly, they belong to be there. Besides for their one player, QB Browns, which is a top quarterback in the game. He's a scrambler. You can open up the playbook. But he's also a 75 pass control, which is really good. But the rest of the team, both offensively and defensively, are slow. Now, some would argue that they should be in Tier 6, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but this tier list is also built to deter from calling Tier 7 because then you're using the worst teams in the game over and over because there's not options. So you call Tier 7, you're stuck using those 4 teams. But if you do call Tier 7, your opponent will probably call the Browns. And they'll have a little advantage on you because of their scrambling quarterback and his ability. But your teams are going to be just as fast as the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Colts. The Seahawks, they at least have Dave Craig, another 69 pass control, but he's got one of the slowest arms in the game. They have Jacob Green, of course, on the defensive line, who is fast, but their pass coverage isn't great. There's not really too much there with them. Offensively, you're just looking for speed. The Patriots got Marv Cook on offense, and that's about it. They have a pretty respectable defense. They have Lippett and Tippett. The topside corner is also pretty solid. They can hang a little bit better with the passing teams because of that. So they're not a bad team to use against the Browns or the Seahawks if you're just trying to win by defense. And the Colts are the worst team in the game. They do have Bentley at a 44 max speed running back, but I wouldn't really recommend ever using them with those 3 other teams in the tier. So you mostly see Browns, Seahawks, and Patriots used. The Colts are just too bad on defense. They can't stop anything in the passing game. And with 2 good quarterbacks in the tier, I wouldn't recommend it at all. So that's the tier list. Let me know what you guys think about it, if you would change anything. But honestly, this is the best that I feel it could be. I don't think there's any more changes needed after 2.0. This is pretty much where they're at, given that you can go down any tier you want and use one of those teams. The nice thing about this is if you're comfortable with only a few teams, or you only have time to practice a little bit, you only have to be comfortable with a selection of teams rather than know every team in the game. So it makes it better for people who like to use their favorite teams, and also for newer players, or I would say rusty players, because this is a game from 1991 that are coming to play in the tournament. So there's 2 tournaments, like I said. There is the Full Nelson on October 19th. And there is this one coming up this Saturday. So if you're not doing anything, it's football season now. We're at D-Men Tap. It's $35. You get a T-shirt, NES game, and there's still spots available for that. Troy's saying in the chat, just my opinion, I'd have Phoenix in Tier 5 and Cleveland in Tier 6. I could see that possibly. But like I said, I would never put Cleveland in Tier 6 for the reason I described. We're not trying to make people use, because it's basically going to be Seattle, New England all day. So as long as someone's calling Tier 6, then you have options of 7 teams there, which is still pretty good. It's about giving options of teams used. Phoenix in Tier 5, I always think they're just below some of these teams. I don't know, especially in this format. So now it is time to look at the playbooks. So let's look at the playbooks. We put hardcore tier list here, but now we're really looking at the playbook. You don't want to set up yourself up for failure in this. Okay, got rid of the echo for you. Thanks for letting me know. Zach the Sports Guy saying, I play with Brian Blades, isn't a Seattle lot, and Brian Blades isn't a bad receiver. Yeah, he's not bad, he's just slow. That's the thing. Seattle's just got a slow offense. There's no one faster than 38 max speed, so you just got to work with that. So let me know if the echo's okay. So let's look at the playbooks now. We'll go in and look at a playbook. Let's look at the Dolphins. Since the Dolphins, you're going to want to protect Dan Marino back there, not being an easy target for the dive tackles. So first and foremost, I do recommend 2 shotgun plays, but you don't have to do it. If you know what you're doing, you don't need any shotgun plays. The championship game last year, it was Flo versus Morton. Flo didn't have any shotgun plays in his playbook, and he was playing with the Bears, which only have 13 max speed quarterbacks. So you don't need them because you can combat that with running plays. You could combat the nose tackle dive. So here you got the 2 shotgun plays down here. That's good for the Dolphins. Now another play I would recommend, which you will see a lot of in this format, is the curl routes here, and this is also shotgun. The good thing about this play with the Dolphins is Marino's arm is so fast. Usually the reason people don't use this play is because the defenders can get to all the receivers kind of easily, but Marino's gun's so fast that you can still sneak them in there even though the defender's lurking. And then in this play here, it really comes down to what running plays you use. So let's just say we go with the one that's most commonly used here, the run and shoot flare C. And then you have 2 plays on offense right now that would counter that if they tried to dive with the nose tackle, and that's Smith or whoever you have as a running back running up and then the sweep down. So that format's exactly the same. It'll be disguised that way. So in theory, they dive in with the nose tackle because they think it's this play, and you're running down the field with your running back because they got popcorned. They got thrown off. And this is turning out to be one of the best plays in if you know how to run it. This is turning out to be one of the best running plays in this slot because you can really do so much with it. You can go outside, make it ISO. You can cut back and go up the middle, or you can wrap around to the left side and get blocking from your quarterback. So that's a good play to use right now. Would be it's not a dead giveaway because this is also a motion play. Run up the middle though. A nose tackle dive would blow up this play. So you have the options there. Excuse me. I should have brought water down here. Red gun Z slant for a game or two. Otherwise, no shotgun all tournament. So Flo, he knows what he's doing, obviously. He can go into the tournament and do that. I try to know. So in the Retro Sports League Championship, we were playing hardcore Tecmo. And I tried no shotgun playbook with the Bears against Troy, and he just obliterated me. It was not even funny. So you do have to test it out. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get burned pretty bad. So Troy's saying in the chat, you got to go QB sneak 4 at this play here. And that's also a run and shoot play. So it blows up the nose tackle, but you're running with Marino. So it's a good play for sure to have there. But with Marino, he's only 6 max speed. I don't know. It's hit or miss. You could do it if you want to. Well, let's look at another team. So, like teams like the Eagles, Lions, Tampa, Green Bay, Denver, you're not going to need to worry about who they or their playbook. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to protect anything. So let's look at the Eagles. There's really not much to say. You could just pick whatever plays work for you. There's really nothing you need to worry about. So let's go to a team like the Redskins. The motion playbook, they already have it in there. So the thing about the motion playbook, you're probably going to take these out, but you could leave this one in. So 6 of these plays have the exact same formation, which are these top 4 and this 5th one here. Now, Mort has made this playbook more popular in tournament play, more than anyone else. I've been using this play in the wide receiver reverse. Now, there's more risk of a loss, but if you have it in there, if they use the wrong defender, you can really take advantage of them. Now, the good thing about these motion plays is if you're using a lineman, they're defended differently depending on which lineman you're using. So, for instance, this one here, you can't nose tackle dive, but there is another lineman that can dive in and stop the play. This one, you can't nose tackle dive. You can't dive in with any lineman to stop it. Same thing with this one. The best way to defend this is to dive in with your bottom cornerback, but he has to be kind of good or else you can whiff. And then this one here, you can dive up the middle and stop. And this bootleg over here is the same as this running play up here, so there's another lineman that could stop this play, and this one you would have to dive up the middle to stop it. So, with all that going on, one mistake, one wrong guess, and your opponent could be scoring a touchdown. So it's not really recommended. This is a playbook you could use in the tournament. I would change these two, just maybe make them shotguns, especially with the Redskins with slower quarterbacks and no other disguise. This playbook right now has one play action and a bootleg. I never recommend two. One is good because they're kind of like trick plays, and if you need a pass late in the game, it's going to be really risky and easy to select, this shotgun play. So maybe in this playbook you go with this one. So then these two are disguised. Red gun Z slant's just a great play. And then these 5 plays are all disguised. So your opponent's not going to be just selecting nose tackle and trying to dive in on these because they're going to get burned. Let's see. Anything else with the playbook? So there is, and this is the playbook, some variation that Flo ran in the championship game is these runs, the split backs. I don't think there's a split back here, but there is in the rest of them. So something like this. And all of these plays are disguised right now. They're all just split back plays. Right here, yeah, I don't think so. This one would be open to whatever you want. I would stick with this. That's my favorite play, but other people like other plays, maybe even this one. So you can even go there. And then this sweep down would be disguised with this play over here. The run and shoot Y up. You could do that too. So then you got a lot of runs to the right. But the thing about this is if you have a running team, I like this playbook. Like a 63 and up, maybe even 56. If you could put that there, then you can really burn your opponent with this playbook, because if they're choosing these plays and trying to sack your quarterback with the nose tackle, if you get one of these off, one of these 3 with a fast running back, they're going to be scoring a touchdown. The weakness is if you have a slow quarterback like the Redskins, you can put Humphreys in, but he's only a 13 max speed. 4 of these plays are potentially stopped by a nose tackle dive. So that's not good either. But then you could put them in a situation where they're playing the guessing game with these 3 plays. And if you have a fast running back, they're going to get burned, like I said. See, when I play the 49ers in this format, I don't put Jerry Rice at running back. It's not a smart move. You're taking the best possible combination of quarterback and wide receiver, and you're giving it up for a running back, which Roger Craig's not even that bad. 50 max speed. He can do the job back there. So I rather have Jerry Rice out there running, so you could just chuck it up to him and instill fear in your opponent. If you put him at running back, it's not the same, especially against the defenses they're going to be facing. You can stop a 63 max speed running back. It's not that hard. So it's really not something I would do. So there's other plays that you can use in the format, of course, but those are some of the common things we see. Now, if you just like run and shoot, You could do this with Tampa. This is the playbook that I was using a lot last year, although I probably won't use it too much unless I switch to it randomly and get some success. But with this playbook, you don't need to worry about any weird lineman stuff because you got Vinny Testaverde. So here you got 4 run and shoot plays, these 3. This one over here, you got these 2 disguise. Oh, actually you got 5 run and shoot plays because you got the sneak up the middle with Vinny Testaverde. And because you're running split backs, you can also go with this. So potentially, they have 2 other plays that they can't get with the nose tackle. This one and this one. They can't get them with the nose tackle there, so the only one they could stop is here. So say they guess this one, or let's say they guess this play right here. Then, yeah, they're not going to be. They're not diving in with the nose tackle against the Buccaneers. It wouldn't be smart. So you can run this play if you want there, instead of the Vinny Testaverde sneak. So Deontay's asking some questions. Mort's strategy changes from tournament to tournament. I don't know, but when you play him, you better be ready. That's all I could say. Who's commenting for the hardcore tournaments? The plan is on this channel to have Lumberjack Cracks, my brother, on the stream, as well as Troy contributing, myself, and all the others. We'll have a couple mics set up. On stream 2, we will start it off with Brian. We will start it off. You're going to get some radio reports, the whole 9 yards. But he's leaving at 3:30, so when the games get important, he won't be there with his lovely commentary. Let's put it that way. So playbooks, I don't know. Is there anything else I could talk about? Yeah, sure. I could probably talk about this for another half hour or so, but I'm not going to do that. The other formations that you have are the pitch L open, where you have the single back, and then you could combine it with a couple of these other plays. You could do that. These you can get in with the nose tackle a little bit. It's risky though. This one, no. So yeah, there's things you could do. You just need to know. See, the thing about this format is you need to have a depth of knowledge of the teams enough to know like which plays you can get away with what teams. And if you have a team with a slower quarterback and you're worried about it, you just disguise your playbook well. Or you go in with the playbook with more shotgun plays and play it out. Yep, LJC and Troy. Also, Troy's son might get on the mic a little bit. We'll see. Whoever wants to contribute will be able to contribute. We like to keep a arsenal of different announcers. Makes for a better stream, I think. But that is it. That's all I pretty much have. I just want to get this information out there so anyone playing in the tournament on Saturday and in Troy's tournament October 19th in Green Bay, Wisconsin are prepared. Troy, since you're watching in the chat, where can people find your tournament? The other thing is, first place for this tournament also gets free entry into that tournament, which is also going to be the hardcore format. Find GB Land on Facebook. So just type in GB Land. You could find his tournament. Wisconsin's the heart of Tecmo. We all know that. It was the home of Tecmo Madison. And it seems to pull out the most players. And Midwest overall, heart of Tecmo. And don't forget about the original Tecmo Bowl on the 18th, the day before Friday night. That's pretty cool. There's not a lot of those tournaments going around. Brad Bell throws the biggest one in Omaha, Nebraska. But there will be that one, a smaller one, before, on the eve of the full Nelson too. So a lot of big Tecmo coming up. These aren't the only tournaments. There's another one in New York. So if you want more information on that, I think it's like northeasttecmo.com or go to tecmobowl.org. And Brad Bell is running the tournaments. Okay, so Brad Bell's going to run that Tecmo Bowl tournament on Friday night. Very nice. That's cool. But yeah, we went over the tier list. We went over the playbook. I'm just excited to finally get to this date to play it out. Like I said, we got over 20 players. We've got a custom belt. And I just want to see who's going to go home happiest with the $500 and the belt. It's going to be an epic day. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. And if you haven't, retrosportsgamer.net, you could still sign up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I don't know if I'll be doing another stream before Saturday, but if I don't, you'll see me on Saturday at the Tecmo Super Bowl Hardcore Championship. It starts at 11 a.m., so we are accepting walk-ins, so if you want to walk in and pay cash, you can do that as well. Just get there well before 11 a.m., because at that time, we're going to be really locking down the groups. I'd like to have the groups done before, but it's just not realistic. People like to wait till the last second to sign up, so we'll work with it when you show up, but 11 a.m. is definitely going to be the cutoff time. You're welcome, Troy. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you see this later, let me know what you think about the tier list, playbook suggestions, and take care.